Welcome to The Secret Witch Show, the podcast providing a safe and alchemical altar space of conversations which help powerful women escape a half-hearted, spiritless society and rediscover the freedom of living a wildly magical life. Every other week, we explore how to cast aside the wounds of shame, guilt, and fear connected with fully being yourself, so you can grant yourself permission to stop hiding, ground soulfully back into your body, illuminate your whole soul desires, tend your soul, rediscover and reclaim your powerful gifts, express your magic, and manifest your wildest alchemy. There's no better place to become who your heart longs to be. This is where we will guide you into liberation. I'm your host, Nicole Barton, and I'm so excited to dive in. Welcome, sensitive souls. How are we all? I have been really enjoying journeying with our women in the archetypal remedies we've been serving recently, with Rosa being really popular last October. And I'm so delighted to share that as we begin this new year, I'm going to be sharing way more journeys with our healing remedies for women to learn to heal their own souls by activating their own inner archetypal apothecary so they can step into their gifts as healers, teachers and guides. It is filling my heart to receive all the lovely words from women who have journeyed with us at the moment. And this is the perfect episode today on the lead up to our gorgeous group program with Archetypal Aurum, which begins in January, which is a remedy of gold, the reclamation of our feminine power. Because in this episode we discuss the very nuanced meaning of feminine power. If you would like to join one of our journeys, then head to www.nicolebarton.co.uk/archetypal apothecary to find out what is upcoming next. On The Secret Witch Show today, our guest is Dr. Stephania Sciamano. Stephania is a doctor, metaphysical specialist and awakening mentor to high-achieving women. She specialises in helping successful women open wide to receive at their highest potential, but in a way that is good for the feminine body. Stephania's protocols are simple, elegant and powerful. Her clients lose the anxiety and the body dips, create a more spacious life, begin a love affair with their divinity, become sexy again to their partners and themselves, and watch life come to them like a ravenous lover. In this episode, we explored how the modern woman innocently exhausts and depletes herself by trying to keep up with men in a culture that is so oriented towards success and goals. And Stephania explained the impact of this on our hormones and our feminine bodies, which are coded differently to men's. We dived into how the secret to wealth in all areas of wealth, money, love, life force, spirit and freedom is to learn to attune to our feminine body and hormones and reclaim all the clairs, our senses, so we can physiologically soften and open to receive abundance. Let's dive in.
Stephania, I am so delighted to have you here and to be diving in with you into one of my favourite topics, the feminine body. And we scheduled this after, I don't know if you remember, after I was really loving reading your brilliant and genius posts about one of your crucibles, which is called Wealth Body, which really resonated with a lot of my teachings. And so yeah, I'm really looking forward to diving into all things feminine body, hormones and abundance. So welcome and thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I always tend to start off by asking people to share a little bit about their journeys, and I would love, because I haven't really heard much of this myself, but I know that you started out as like a doctor who kind of awakened to metaphysics and heeded the call back into body. So I was wondering if that would be a great place to start. And I know we were just talking briefly about my lineage of homeopathy, and I absolutely love that you also kind of studied homeopathy. So yeah, I'm very excited for this.
So I was a doctor for 10 years and I studied natural medicine. So homeopathy was a part of that. And It's funny because we also talked about mind body medicine. So I really thought that I was on top of my game as far as really taking care of my body and all the connections. And it was a very humbling experience to get to about 42 years old. And I think my son was around 3 or 4 at the time. And I hit such a wall of my energy. I was a single mother running a private medical practice. And I remember one day sitting on the floor, and my 3-year-old was so excited to play with me. And he's a boy, so he was tackling me over and over, trying to ignite me to play. And I was exhausted so badly that I just cried. I was like, I can't play with you. And I realized I was giving all of my energy to my clients and my practice, and I had none left for my kid. And it was one of those really wake up moments where I went, that's not the life I want to live. What am I doing? And so I put it out to, I did actually a full moon ritual or something like that, saying, I need a new solution. I can't do this anymore. And I realized I had a secret desire to put my business online and be home with my son, and not have to pay double rent and all the things that happen when you have a house and an office. But it was something I didn't think I could do. It was sort of against the grain. Culture says, you're a doctor, why would you quit? Or you worked so hard, why would you throw it all away? But what it actually ended up doing was lighting a path for me for a completely different life, with a lot more freedom and space to care for my body. And I slowed way down. And at first that's weird for a high achieving woman. You almost feel like you're playing hooky or doing something naughty. Like, well, shouldn't I fill this space back up? Like, I'm used to being busy. But actually, and that was in 2017. So it's been 6 years now. It led me on a beautiful path to a lot more art and poetry in my life, to still use all of my wisdom with the body, but in a completely different way, where I let the divine come through. And I'm not always doing testing and lab work and things that have value. But I also noticed through all those years, usually what's wrong with people, not wrong, but you know what I'm saying, what's concerning them is a matter of the heart and mind affecting the body. And there is no blood test for that. So it really changed my life. And I had to get myself in a fair amount of pain before I would change. But it really led me in a much, much better direction for me and for my family.
It's so powerful, that journey, just sharing that. It's like, firstly, I could really feel like the when you're talking about being a mother to, I think it was a 3-year-old, you were saying, 3-year-old boy, and also holding that kind of busy medical practice as well. I couldn't even imagine.
It was, I felt nuts. I would get so tired, I felt nuts. You know what I mean? Like, crying from exhaustion. It's like, what life is this?
Yeah, absolutely. I know so many of our listeners will resonate with that. That's exactly where they are too, I think. And it's just such an amazing journey, and such a kind of almost like the sense of deep amount of courage is what I'm hearing that. So I think also that's something that women fear as they come to have this kind of illumination of like, actually, I'm here for something more. How on earth do I navigate that? So I don't know if you've got anything to speak to there before we kind of dive into.
I will say you have to go against the opinion of 90% of the people in your life. I remember being told, you're crazy, you won't make money, this is a waste, I can't believe you would do that. I mean, I could make this huge list of all the things people told me that I was doing wrong at the time. And I had to be like, la, 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 just go with what I felt my heart and soul was telling me to do, because it is definitely not conventional.
Yes, I love unconventional.
Right. Yeah.
And I love that. I always say, when we kind of get called to this path, it's almost like it starts a new healing journey of like healing all the fears that are in the way of actually stepping into our gifts.
It makes you feel rebellious sometimes.
And
it's like, I don't want to fight against something like a rebel, but at the same time, you have to go, I'm the one leading this life. I'm the creator here.
Yeah, No, I love that. And yeah, so I absolutely love that journey first and foremost, and the fact that you awaken to metaphysics and this idea that there's no blood test for misalignment with soul is the way that I would define it, but essentially feels like that's what you're kind of pointing to. Gorgeous. And the other thing that I wanted to just speak to that stood out, that is this kind of idea of, and I think it comes back to other people's judgments as well, and how we kind of take those on. The sense of like people thinking, why would you quit the work that you're doing? Why would you give all of that away? And there's a sense of like us having to die to be reborn.
Right. You're right. It is like a death, because an identity falls away and a new one is rebirthed from it. But the way our brains are wired is to consider that a failure. And so that's a really important message for women, I think. So much of what our world says is failure is really rebirth. And in your heart and soul, the difference. And you will find naysayers. You absolutely will. And there was a little bit of a middle finger inside me saying like, you don't get to choose this. You're not coming to watch my child. You're not paying my bills. You're not soothing me when I'm so exhausted I'm crying. Like, why would I listen to you? And I had to remember they were well-meaning. So you don't go into like an FU situation. But at the same time, you have to become deaf, dumb, and blind to what other people think you should be doing. And that requires an incredible amount of courage that not everybody's ready for. It's a very interesting part of the journey where you go, I'm going anyway.
Yeah, I love that so much. And I think also it's helpful when we remember, and I'm sure you have journeyed that as well, but it's like this sense of like they're just mirroring what fears we have as well. Yeah, one of the things we were talking about before we pressed record, actually, and I think this ties in quite nicely with this, was that piece around logic versus body. And I think that's something, particularly in that part of that journey as well, and very much relevant to what we're here to talk about, is that we can very much get caught in that kind of logical piece. And what I'm hearing in what you shared is almost like there was this deeper call from your heart, from your body, into something that was more in alignment for your body. And I'm just wondering if you can speak to that piece around logic that we were talking to earlier before we pressed record.
Well, logic is considered the right way. It's and we don't want to get into like semantics of masculine, feminine too much, but we were raised to be as men, as children, as young girls, to push, and everything is very high adrenaline and cortisol and the get up and go hormones that make us very motivated, make us fast, make us keep pushing ahead. But unfortunately, as we get a little older, that depletes our progesterone to such a degree that this is where women have infertility. This is where women have trouble relaxing. It's where we have trouble receiving the man in our life as lover and as partner. And so what we tend to do is when the going gets tough, we go right back to logic because it's how we're conditioned to think. But at the same time, the female psyche is wired for something called eros, E-R-O-S. I think you say eros.
Eros.
It's an accent thing. But we're not wired to be only logical. And I find that the women that only rely on logic, they end up suffering, especially when they get a little bit older. They realize, I don't feel sexy anymore. Something's missing. Like, where's the juice? And it's almost like too much logic sort of dries a woman out, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely. I think that's, again, common to people who will be listening to the show, is this kind of pattern of, I always call it like logic versus magic, but I think you're maybe talking to it in a slightly different way, but it's like this sense of like women can tend to over rely on logic, particularly women who are like high performers and have been in that environment of like push, force, hustle, keep up with this very kind of masculine world. And by masculine world, I guess I mean kind of like, you know, very driven, very competitive, all of that sort of thing. So, and I know that's a big part of what your work is about. So I'm just wondering if now we move into, I mean, first of all, maybe we can just talk a little bit to the importance of, you know, alchemizing and healing that relationship or that disconnect or that kind of going into logic versus going into the body, because I think it's really helpful. I think you just touched on that there actually. But yeah, what is the importance of going into the body? And also this piece around, particularly around the feminine body. I know you talk about women being coded differently, and like, what does that look like in terms of how that differs to how the masculine is coded? I think would be a really juicy question as well.
Well, I'm going to use a really provocative word here. Women are designed to be penetrated.
Yeah. I love that you shared that. I was going to ask you about that later anyway, so we may as well go here.
Here we are. Yeah. That we're designed anatomically to be penetrated. And most women that are in touch with their bodies and in a good place as far as their sexuality will light up and smile and maybe get a little giddy when we talk about this, because it's like, oh yes, I do like to be penetrated actually. And there can be a craving deep within a woman for that. But when we learn to live only from logic, we're the penetrator. We penetrate the field, we're going forward, we're jutting out almost like a phallus. And so when a woman wants to be penetrated, but all her energy is going out like a cock, it's like, well, you can't do both, honey.
I love
and women
that.
go, oh.
Yeah, I feel it. That you can really like viscerally feel that in your body, I think, as well, when you describe it like that. I loved actually, I saw somewhere you said, what's your body's reaction to the word penetrate? And I love that inquiry. That felt really juicy.
Oh, yes. Well, some women do have sexual trauma, and we have to be mindful that not everyone is ready for that level of what we're discussing. But once that begins to heal, or when she starts to sort of release her grudges with men from her past, or maybe her father, it starts to, the energy goes from all jutting out to kind of allowing in. It's like the ease and the flow and the work not working quite so to the bone that women tell me they want has to come with letting things in and not always being the initiator, the go-getter at all times. It's an energetic switch that some people, it feels kind of easy, and other people go, I have no idea how to do this.
I really love what you're speaking to there. It reminds me of one of the remedies we talked about, the archetypal remedies that I work with in this path before we came on. But this one of the remedies that I serve, almost as like the first part of the path, is archetypal Rosa. It's very much that like tight in a bird, you know, learning to open to receive. So I love what you shared there, and particularly around, you know, some of the healing of the trauma, to be able to even open to seeing and feeling that piece around penetration. There's a lot of, and I know you talk a lot about this as well, but like there's a lot of tending of our nervous system, and of course the hormones that you're going to share on as well today. So yeah, I don't know if there's anything else that you want to share on that, or whether we should kind of move on to, I don't know why I said should, that doesn't feel like a good word to my system. But yeah, whether there's anything else to add to that before we move on to talking about, yeah, all of that stuff, and wealth body, which I'd love to hear more about.
I want to understand your question a little better. I feel like I'm not sure what you're asking.
Is there anything else that you want to share around penetration, in essence, or the piece around nervous system before we move into talking about wealth body?
Well, I think what women need to understand is that the hormone progesterone is like gold to the feminine body. It's a very yin, as in yin and yang. Yeah. It's a very yin hormone, and it's almost like we don't notice how valuable it is until it's low. You don't know how valuable it is until you maybe want to get pregnant, or you don't know how valuable it is until you realize you can't relax, or a woman may have symptoms like hot flashes or night sweats that really bother her. And then she goes, oh, progesterone. Oh, I do need that. Okay. And we need to know that adrenaline, cortisol, those like very high, fast-paced hormones compete with progesterone. They compete biochemically. So if a woman is going to, said with love, insist on leading a very high adrenaline life, her progesterone is going to hit rock bottom. That's just a biochemical fact. And so we have to take precautions, or we have to be mindful of what you're actually doing, because the biochemistry doesn't lie. And this might sound a little harsh. Women lie to themselves all the time. Oh, no, I'm not. Oh, I'm not doing that. Oh, I rest. I'm like, you're resting with your laptop on your lap. It's not the same thing. We have to get very, very honest with the kind of lifestyle that we're leading if you want the long-term juiciness, the long-term magnetism, the things that women want, but they don't talk about when they're just so successful. It's like, all right, well, I hear you that you want that, and it's time to get honest about what's happening on the inside.
I love that. And I've just got this sense as well of like the body, we might lie to ourselves, but the body manifests, what the truth is. And so I think that's really beautiful example of that, and like how our body is not going to allow us to lie.
Oh no, she'll rat you out. It's cute. It's like we want to approach it with humor, and I'm like, oh, you are, huh? Well, look at this though. Like, sweetheart, you got to slow down. You just have to.
If you could just explore some of the ways that the body might reveal if we are kind of in that adrenaline competing with progesterone space. So I think that would be quite interesting.
Well, and then let's tie in a couple other hormones to really complete the picture, because these things that the high adrenaline life I'm describing also depletes serotonin, and serotonin is the hormone that is content and grounded and enjoys the here and now. Our world doesn't tell us to do that. Our world tells us to always go for the next thing, keep striving, keep reaching. But serotonin is the one that makes you feel good. Like feel good in your life, good in your body, and like you can settle into yourself. And so they all kind of work in concert together. Now, when a woman is low on her progesterone and low on her serotonin, she's going to feel irritable. She's going to feel impulsive. She's going to feel like people around her aren't keeping up, especially the men. I see this a lot. Women say, he's not keeping up with me. He's not doing what I want him to do. Or they'll go, I keep trying to give him books to read and he just isn't getting it. I'm like, that's not going to work. So we try to change the people around us. Yes.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, I'm just chuckling because I don't know if you remember Nux vomica as a picture homeopathically. It's almost like
the type A.
That's it's like that's who we're speaking about here.
It's true.
For being like, it's my way or nothing. Like, just get on with it and hurry up.
And they're like, come on, keep up.
Yeah.
And no man likes that. So we find that relationships start to crumble, and the woman is just deeply dissatisfied. It's like, wow, I'm surrounded by success, but I feel unfulfilled and I don't know why. And some of it is her hormones are just in a mess. And we can't always fix that with the medication because the lifestyle that depleted it in the first place hasn't changed. So this is where I come in and I'm like, okay, let me get you straightened out.
Yeah. I love that so much. And I'm just thinking where to go. I think I would love to hear more about how you then help women. So we talked about like how that might show up in their bodies. What do they then need to do? Do sounds a bit of a funny word given we're talking about like how much they're already doing. But what's the kind of journey that you guide women through?
I start with the basics because we have to start with the basics, and that's the bookends of your day, your morning and your evening. So the one thing that I find women do very wrong in our modern world is they look at their phone first thing in the morning. and almost everybody does it. And the rule that I teach women is sunlight before phone light, or blue light, because it could be your laptop. But if you go and get sunlight in the morning before you pick up your phone, and I poll women all the time. I ask them questions. These are my clients or just my free group. One person got sunlight before phone light, and that's it. Everybody else is right on the phone. They're looking at messages, they're looking at emails, they're looking at Facebook and Instagram, and they are in it immediately. And it's like the curiosity of what's there overtakes them. But a woman's hormones, in specifically, men would benefit from it too, but even more the women. If you're going to be in the phone before the sun, your hormones will be trashed. And we absolutely have to get in the sunlight first. That's one. The second one that I find a lot of women were doing in the opposite direction is you need to have protein before you have caffeine. Almost everybody goes right for the phone and right for the caffeine. And those two things will tear your hormones apart. But it's our modern world, and women just don't know that. So I walk women through this journey where you have to change your morning. And it's amazing the excuses women come up with. Well, I have to look at my emails. Well, I'm so used to doing this. Well, it's dark when I get up. I mean, I've heard it all. And I just go, you need to figure it out. You need to find a way to either get a UV light or get outside, because I'm telling you, no drug will fix this. You actually have to use what God, the divine, gave us, which is called the sun.
I love that. Yeah.
It's free. Go outside.
I love that. Yeah. I used to talk about, how we are essentially human animals, and, nature is such medicine. So that makes a lot of sense to me. I loved what you said there about like nothing's going to fix it. I think one of the things that is helpful to also talk about, because I think you've got a similar stance on this, is that one of the things that can keep women in this cycle is also this kind of external, looking to the external to fix them. And so a big part of the journey for me is that kind of learning to heal ourselves.
Yes.
So essentially it feels like that's what you're talking to there. I don't know if you've got anything to speak to on that.
Well, I think some of the time it's almost easier, back to the logic discussion, for a woman to go down the rabbit hole of researching and looking for a cool supplement or a cool test to take. That's easier than going outside every morning. Because that's just how we're taught to be. Going outside connects you to nature, your divinity. It makes you slow down. It's like, that's harder than 2 hours of research on your phone. And why is that? Because you get so much good dopamine from the research. There's a pleasure. It hits the pleasure hormones more to get all the hits from the excitement of the research than to slow down, get the sunlight in your eyes, and just be with yourself in the morning. And it's a fascinating thing to watch, because women will say, oh, I did all of this research. And I'm like, you didn't need to, but you wanted to, and that's okay. But we have to learn, sometimes the path is actually easier and requires a different level of accountability to make the switch. So, I'm usually talking to highly successful women that don't really have trouble with discipline. They don't really have trouble with, oh, that's the instruction, I can do it. But if it doesn't go with how their life already flows, we usually hit some speed bumps.
I love that. Yeah, that's really beautifully illuminated, actually. One of the other questions, because the title of this is how to tune to your feminine body and hormones to receive your highest level abundance. I'm just wondering if we can move to speaking to abundance a little bit, and the connection between body, hormones, and abundance. And I'm wondering if we can start off by talking about what abundance is in general, because I think that would be helpful to kind of know before we move into like the connection to body and hormones and abundance.
I define abundance as like 5 types of wealth. And those are the wealth of your body, which is like cellular wealth, the wealth of
Ooh.
your money, which is like financial wealth, the wealth of your relationships. So that's 3. The wealth of your time and freedom. This is a big one for successful women. Most women say, I've got everything but time. They say they're time poor. And what they realize when they're like 40, 50 years old is, I just want space. I want room to breathe. I want to play. So time, freedom, and that kind of abundance is usually a sticking point. And then there's the abundance of your divinity, the support of the divine coming through you where you don't have to work so hard. So to kind of recap those, it's your life force and body, your relationships, the divine, time, and money. So all of that is when they're well-rounded, especially, is a very abundant life. It's not just money.
I love that you've illuminated that, because I think one of the things when we hear abundance, immediately our minds go to, oh, money. So yeah, I love how you've illuminated the other 4. Yeah, I talk about 5 levels, funnily enough, as well. But it's yeah, I think that's such an important point, is that it's not just financial, it's like all the other pieces as well. Gorgeous. So I guess then how do we connect the dots between the body and hormones and receiving highest level abundance?
Well, let's kind of go back to what we were saying. The go-getter hormones are like coming out, right? Shooting out, penetrating the field. And if you're only running on that and you don't have enough progesterone to relax and dilate, because let's remember what progesterone does in the body of a woman. It regulates her cycles. It maintains her creations, or the fetus if she were to get pregnant, and it dilates her. Progesterone is the hormone that when you're pregnant makes your ligaments relax so your pelvis can stretch a little. It's the one that dilates your cervix and helps you to open to get the baby out. So we have to have that. If we don't have a dilating hormone, how do we let things in? So it's a different way of looking at this hormone. But at the same time, it's like almost every client I've ever worked with in the medical practice, when I was really doing testing, and now I'm not doing testing, we're just, going deeper. These women are so in their cortisol and adrenaline, they aren't letting in anything. It's amazing that they just want to go on to how do I get it? How do I get it? What's the goal? And I'm like, what if we change a little bit from goal to desire?
Oh, yes. Let's talk about that.
and that you can even feel the difference in your body. So if you feel the word goal, it almost feels like you're an archer with an arrow shooting a target, right? And if you say desire, don't you feel different? Like in your body kind of open up and lean back a little bit. So you can see that in the hormone profile. And at the same time, we can't be always the archer and allowing things to come to us. Those are almost cross purposes. So what if you could slow down, do things that support your serotonin, do things that keep you from depleting all your progesterone, and learn to allow abundance to come to you? But it's fascinating the way successful women wiggle away from that. They're like, no, I want it faster than that. Like, I'm telling you, it will come faster, but you have to do the work to change your energy.
Oh, I love that so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what I'm thinking of there, I can talk about like feminine power. And I know that's kind of almost like a phrase that's kind of bandied about in this world, but often when people come to hearing about feminine power, they often almost, again, go to that kind of almost competing with men feminine power rather than true feminine power. And I'm just wondering how you would define feminine power. I love the piece that you talked about desire. So I'm curious to hear what you will explain feminine power as, or what your view is.
I love this because I think what the women that you're discussing or describing, they're describing power, but not feminine, maybe female. So it sound like we're splitting hairs just a little bit, but the word feminine to me means the yin, softer, cooler side of life. Feminine power is the power of nurturing even herself in her own heart. Feminine power is the power of her tuning her intuition to a level of precision and trust in her intuition that comes with the body. That's all her clairs, her clairvoyance, her clairaudience, the way she feels it in her body, which is clairsentience. These are feminine powers, not just running forward. So I think this is where women get confused. They're calling it feminine because they're a woman, but it's not femininity. Feminine is also the ability to take something tiny, multiply it, and make it better. Just like we use the microscopic sperm, cultivate it, and we give back a baby. That's a feminine power.
Yeah, I love everything that you share. And again, it's like there's a sense of like it's really found in the body, like in those natural processes. Like that's what we're born here for, as women, to be able to do.
Right. It's like if you're really sick, do you want a man to come take care of you or a woman? Nothing against men, but what is the natural desire there? Most of the time you want a woman. You're like, tuck me in. Feed me tea.
So yeah. The other thing that I loved about what you just said, there was so much I loved about what you just said actually, but there's the particular piece that I loved was about the clairs, all the clairs. I've never thought about that before. Obviously, yeah, that's a big part of my work with reclaiming our magic. But yeah, it actually, I love the lens that you just used of like all the clairs being the feminine gifts. So thank you for that. And yeah, just the piece about yeah, the nuance of what feminine power is, and I think it is something that people do often misunderstand and have this perception. I know I'm thinking of my own journey and how I used to think that, you know, embodying my power was about competing with men and competing to, you know, fighting my way to the top. And yeah, in my own kind of journey for the last 3 years or a little bit longer, it's very much been about seeing that there is a very different feminine power that comes very much from desire, from the heart. So I loved when you talked earlier about goal versus desire. I think that's one of the key things, is this kind of desire led power, I guess.
Yes, I think also desire has been tainted a little bit. You know, sometimes we confuse it with simple lust, which isn't all bad. Lust can be very delicious and very fun in the right context, for sure. But what if desire is actually from the heart and the body and more aligned with your divine path? When we allow ourselves to be very, very honest about desire, it uncovers things that the world does not always agree about. Kind of like my desire to close my practice and everyone going, you shouldn't do that. But that desire was stronger, and it wasn't even a goal. It was like, I think this is right for me. And as women, that can be a funny thing. It's like the true desire is usually covered up with layers and layers and layers of conditioning that we're taught make it bad. And what I would challenge women to do is to get a little more honest about what they really desire, coming from a deep place in themselves versus the goals that everybody wants. Everybody wants a house and a car and a money, and, you know, like, that's cool. But what do you really want, honey? And it's usually under there a little bit.
Yeah, I love that so much, particularly the piece about layers as well. And I think now I'm starting to see, you know, how the hormones can kind of play into us not being able to get in touch with our true desires as well. So yeah, I'm wondering if there's anything to speak to there.
Well, if you think about it, if we're running on adrenaline, can you feel your desire, or did you go right back to goal? I don't feel a lot of adrenaline with my desires. I feel almost like I'm in the ocean and it's gently rocking me. You know, I'm a little more connected to the elements, and I can almost hear the voice of the divine on the wind. That's what desire feels more like to me, a warmth, warm honey, something like that. And when I go back to goal, I'm like running.
I love that. Yeah. Yeah. And it's, again, I often invite, well, I don't know about you, but I invite women into the sensations in their body to know as like a bit of a, you know, a guidance system as to, what they're operating in. Is it goal or desire?
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering if there's any other practical advice. So somebody is listening to this and they've got their sunlight and the protein piece. Are there any kind of other practical ways if someone's starting to realize, okay, maybe this is something that I'm struggling with? Are there any kind of other practical ways that they can begin to integrate this and look at it more deeply?
Well, I think it's important to do the nighttime well too. Same thing with the blue light, is you don't want to have a lot of blue light at night. So you can get these glasses, these specs that are sort of an amber color that will block blue light. So what most people do is they're on their phone first thing in the morning, and then they're lying in their bed with their phone at night. And so that blue light will keep cortisol going and keep progesterone going down. So what I tell clients is at night, you want to make the lights of the house dim. So you can put on a little night light, you can have candles, but to have bright lights and phone will destroy your hormones. You can wear the specs if you really want to look at your phone at night. And that's what I do. If I really need to look at something, I just put them on. They're not the prettiest thing I own.
I literally have, I don't know if you can see just here. These are my.
Is that yours?
Yeah.
Yeah, they do help you relax at night. So we have to be mindful of that. Blue light is not going away. So, and especially if you have an online business and you have a world where you have to be on your computer, you just need to start taking care of that. We also need to look at some of the very simple rules about nutrition, like protein wakes you up, carbohydrates help you relax. So when we want to relax for, the end of our evening, you might want to add just a little carbohydrate. Most people eat low carb, totally fine. Eat low carb. Don't have a bunch. Don't have a big meal of pasta before bed, or maybe ever, but a little will actually work in your favor to get you to create the serotonin that helps you go to sleep. Like, you can really use your nutrition as a tool to work with your hormones instead of demonizing certain food groups or things like that. So those little practical pieces will actually support the hormones. Getting some electrolytes in your life. Most people are very dehydrated, especially on a cellular level. You can get electrolyte powders, add it to your water, have 2 of those a day. Especially, I live in a very hot place, especially the summer here, where you sweat like mad. You have to have electrolytes or you're just going to feel bad. But what people do instead is they will be depleted and add caffeine. And I'm like, you're low in electrolytes, replace those instead. These are so simple. And it's a way that your body goes, oh, I needed that.
It's such a shame that it's all available in nature, and yet our culture has come to really can't think of the word, like just disown natural wisdom.
It has, and it's an interesting thing because maybe not in the circles I'm in, because I hang out with pretty healthy people, but at the same time, people are like, wow, that's so weird that you're wearing those glasses, or wow, that's so weird that you don't have coffee on an empty stomach first thing in the morning. It's like, my hormones aren't going to stand for that. And once you see the difference, so I challenge a woman to try the sunlight before phone light, protein before caffeine in the morning, and to dim the lights and not have the blue light at night, and do that for a week and tell me if you don't feel different. Every woman that did it goes, holy moly, I feel better.
Wow. So even in a week, it can start to make a difference. That was my next question, actually, was like, how long does it take when kind of starting to integrate these practices before we're really starting to feel a difference in our bodies?
Sometimes 3 days. If you do that plus some electrolytes, a woman goes, like, whoa, I'm back.
Mm.
I feel like I've been missing from myself. I didn't even give him like a supplement. I didn't give him a blood test. I just said, no, this is how your body's designed. God's design for the body is perfect. You have to learn to work with it.
Yeah, that's powerful.
It's so easy, but we don't want to. We're
Mm.
like, no. What supplement should I buy? I'm like, electrolytes. That's what you need. That's it.
I love that. Yeah, absolutely. And when you say it, it's so simple, isn't it? It's like, it's not something that we have to overcomplicate. It's just some really simple things that we can, apply to our lives, to, connect to and attune to, I guess. Like we said the word, how to tune to your feminine body and hormones. Like it really feels like it's just coming back into the deepest alignment with our bodies.
I would
Gorgeous.
agree. And to let it be simple. It's amazing how we want to overcomplicate because that somehow feels more special or more superior. And that's where the ego is getting involved. And it's like, you don't have to do that. Like, that's adorable. We humans are so cute, but stop that.
It's so true.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, really powerful. Yeah, I'm feeling like we've done a really good exploration of this actually, and I'm just wondering if there's anything else left to explore before we complete. If there's anything else that you want to speak to on this, because it feels like this has been a really juicy conversation. But if there's anything else that's been missed, I'm happy to explore explore that.
I just think that one of the most easy and sort of enjoyable tools that I work with women is their breath. And most women don't really even listen to this part. They just kind of eye roll and go, yeah, breathe. Okay. But at the same time, we can allow the breath coming into the body to feel good. As if you have your mouth open just a little and you're breathing to feel the air roll over your tongue as if you are kissing a lover. And if you do that for just a moment now together, I call it the holy erotic breath. And you lean your body back a little and you let the breath feel soft and gentle. This is you receiving life force, one of the forms of abundance, for free. And you can imagine that the air is filled with golden dust and you are letting life force into your body, which you are. And we are designed that we don't have to think about it. We don't have to prove our worth. We don't have to try. We breathe over and over and over without thinking about it. So what if we allow the breath to have an erotic quality? What would that feel like to even do that for 1 minute a day? How could that help you tune in to some of your power as a woman? It really feels wonderful and it can change your life.
Oh, that was like the perfect summary of the entire conversation. that was magical. Yeah, really feeling that, and I'm going to be tuning into the eros in my breath tonight. Beautiful. That is so gorgeous. Thank you so much. I am wondering, I was asked just at the end, where can people find out more about you, your work, and what are you working on that you want to share as well? We'll put all of this in the show notes, but it's helpful to just ask you the questions so you can share more.
I have a free Facebook group called the Wealth Body Collective. And that's where I have free videos and I'm tuning in. This is where I communicate with people the most. And so it's been there a while. There's like 1,500 people in there. And they're all really cool ladies that are on a similar journey. So that might be something to join for free. And I have a wonderful, a couple ways to help women in person. I have a single session called a wealth scan. That's if they need a breakthrough on men and money. And a lot of ladies love that. And then I have a 2-week journey that is also private where I help a woman overcome how her ego is in her way. Ooh. So she can bring a lot of this eroticism into her body and to start to allow things to come to her. It's a really provocative journey. It changes women's lives in 2 weeks. And I can't say enough about the power of what comes through them as they are on that journey. So those are just a couple of things happening.
Gorgeous. Thank you so much. We'll put all of that in the show notes. I did just think of one more question, actually, that I just want to ask you before we do complete, which is very much around, we've talked a lot around, you know, the power of the feminine, and we've talked about how we're kind of competing with the masculine. But one thing I think I've heard you talk about before, because I'm sure I've liked some of your posts on this, is how we're not in resistance to the masculine. It's because as long as we're in resistance to masculine, there's an inability to open to receive the masculine, I think, is the gist of what I've heard you talk about. And I love that. So I just wanted to share, because I think, you know, also a lot of people could be listening to this being like, well, sod the masculine, if I've been competing with it. So I just wonder if there's anything to add on that before we complete.
There's a journey that you could maybe call feminine awakening. And it's an incredibly humbling journey. It can bring you to your knees. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. But the value of learning where you are competing with and playing power games with the masculine, whether that's the more masculine aspect of the divine, whether that's human men or money, we are taught to be in survival mode, to have a sword in your hand and to be covered in armor. And that is how women are raised in our Western cultures. And to actually learn where you're practically competing with, almost stabbing the masculine over and over and over, trying to protect yourself while saying, I want to receive him. And if you look at it like that, it's very cross purposes. It's like you can't deny your deep desire for him while craving him at the same time. So it's a journey sometimes to get to where you see your armor, and you don't necessarily have to fling it all off at once and be left with this soft, exposed underbelly, because that's what women are afraid of. Your pace is your pace. But at the same time, it's a recognition of how much men, God, money are already showing up for you. You're just combative. And a woman's ego goes, oh, no, I'm not. And I'm like, okay.
I love that we left this till the end.
Yeah.
It's just like, yeah, trigger central right at the end.
It really is. And I mean, these are the women I work with. I work with the big go-getters who were like, I'm not doing that. I'm like, okay, then let's just let that sit for a minute. And then she comes back around and goes, yes, I am. I'm like, I know.
I know. And the reason why I mentioned it was because I've also journeyed with that whole kind of exploration myself. So it just popped into my mind. I was like, oh yes, I know. She was very aligned with my own kind of view on that. So yeah, I'm really glad that we just spoke to that right at the end. Yeah,
it's worth it. The journey is worth it. Mm-hmm.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. It's been such a juicy conversation, and yeah, I'm loving all of it.
My pleasure.
This one was a potent conversation, which I loved. Here are my takeaways. Women learn culturally to operate from a logic-based paradigm when they are really built to be in their bodies. Logic drives women out. When we push and are goal-orientated as women in feminine bodies, everything becomes very high adrenaline and cortisol, and we become impulsive, irritable, exhausted, anxious, and depleted. These hormones compete with our feminine progesterone hormone biochemically, which helps us to align with our natural feminine cycles and soften and open or dilate to being more receptive. And this competition between hormones needs to be healed for us to receive our heart's desires. There are some simple and practical things that we can do to improve our hormones, which Stephania dived into in the show, including more sunlight and less blue light, more protein in the morning, incorporating healthy carbs for evening meals, and integrating electrolytes, which can make a difference in even 3 days. These simple and natural swaps, like going out into the sunshine first thing in the morning instead of being on our phones, can often be a challenge in a world where we're used to quick fixes, where we just go and get more supplements. But they are important for our hormones and our wealth. The true secret to wealth, in all areas of wealth, money, love, life force, spirit, and freedom, is to learn to attune to our feminine body and hormones and reclaim all the clairs, our senses, so we can physiologically soften and open to receive abundance. If you'd like to get the show notes and links for everything we've chatted about in this episode, head to www.secretwitch.co.uk. If you know a secret witch who would love this episode, please share with them to help them liberate themselves. And so you don't miss out on next week's episode, head to your podcast app of choice and hit subscribe. Thank you so much for listening. I'll see you next time.